the different ways that taxes impact rich people versus working people. I gave you that Mark and Mary example from who was it? To Conrad Shaw, you know, where Mark makes Mary makes 20,000, Mark makes 40,000, costs $19,000 to live in the community. Mary has $1,000 left over or disposable income throughout the year. Mark has $21,000 in disposable income throughout the year. So he doesn't actually make twice as much as Mary. He makes 21 times as much as Mary in terms of disposable income, which is what we need to think about. So with that in your head, let's now talk about taxes. If you were a billionaire and your tax rate was 40%, and you make $1 million a year, let's say, just to use even numbers. You make $1 million a year, you pay a 40% tax rate, so your take-home pay is $600,000 a year. Odds are you're not living on that much. Maybe you do. I don't know. But, you know, 600 grand a year. So what happens if you get a tax cut? If you're that multimillionaire, that guy or woman who's making $1 million a year, what happens when you get a tax cut? What happens when the tax rate goes from 40% down to 20%? Your after-tax income, your before-tax income was $1 million. You took home $600,000 because you paid $400,000 in taxes. Now you're only paying $200,000 in taxes, so your after-tax income is $800,000. So you got a $200,000 a year raise. And like Mark, you know, you've got a lot more disposable income. But that's all. It doesn't affect your standard of living. It doesn't affect your quality of life. It doesn't affect pretty much anything because it's just money. Now, to go back to Conrad's example of, you know, when money's not money, when money is survival. Let's say that you're that multimillionaire guy who owns the business, and I'm your employee. And you know, because I've told you, because you can look, because, you know, this is how it works, and you know that I'm willing to work for $50,000 a year, let's say, after taxes. That's what I need to live on. Let's say we live in a, you know, kind of an expensive, well, it's not even all that expensive. Let's say $50,000 a year, just to make it even. So actually, that wouldn't be. Let's say we've got that same 40% tax bracket. So let's say I need 40,000. Let's say I need $60,000 a year to live on. Okay, so so you're my employer. You're paying me $100,000 a year. I pay 40% in income taxes. I have $60,000 a year left over to live on. So what happens when my taxes go down? My $100,000 a year salary, which is $60,000 a year in take-home pay, if the tax went from 40% to 20%, now becomes $80,000 a year in take-home pay. Okay, so I'm making an extra $20,000 a year because I got a tax cut. But you're my boss. You're my employer. And you know that not only do I need $60,000 a year to live, you know, at whatever standard of living I've defined, or I've decided that I want, you know, I need to live by $60,000 a year. But you also know that I don't need $80,000 a year, right? I only need $60,000 a year to live. So as my employee, and you also know that anybody else who's willing to take my job, whatever it is I'm doing, in all probability, being from the same community and having the same skill set, are willing to do that job for $60,000 a year after taxes. So what do? You come to me and you say, you know, you're making $20,000 a year more now than you were last year because you got a tax cut, so I'm going to drop your wages by $20,000 a year. If you want to continue working for $80,000 a year, which nets out to $60,000 after taxes, that's great. Love to have you stay here. This is essentially what General Motors said to their employees, remember? If you don't want to stay here, I can easily hire somebody. You will tell me that you can easily hire somebody for $80,000 a year who will take home $60,000 and do the same job. Now, I would be crazy to say, no, I'm going to walk away from a job that now pays essentially, take-home pay is identical to what it was before. I'm still taking home 60 grand a year. Now, let's say the taxes go up. Let's play this thought experiment. We just played it, taxes going down, and what you can see is when taxes go down, rich people get richer, and working people get a pay cut. Following this? When Reagan cut taxes on working people, his tax cuts were right across the board. When Reagan cut taxes, wages went down. Or they flattened, and they've continued to go down over time, you know, particularly when you consider inflation. But rich people got much richer. So what happens when taxes go up? Bill Clinton raised taxes about 3.5%, as I recall. Barack Obama raised taxes around 2%. What happened after those tax increases? Wages for working people went up. Now, why would that happen? Okay, back to your example. You're the rich guy employer, and you're making $1 million a year, and your tax just went from 40% to 50%. So instead of taking home $600,000 a year, you're only taking home $500,000 a year. But you're living on a couple $100,000 a year. All the rest of it's disposable income, or you stick it in your Swiss bank account. So it doesn't matter to you. It's just less in savings. Taxes go up on me, the working guy, and my $100,000 salary, which is $60,000 take home. Say the taxes went up 10%. Now I'm taking home $50,000 a year. Now, you as my employer know I can't live on $50,000 a year. I'm going to start looking for another job because I've got to have $60,000 take-home pay. So what do? You come to me and you say, you know, I'm going to give you a $10,000 raise. So that you're still making $60,000 a year after taxes. So for rich people, when taxes go up, they simply have less money. For working people, when taxes go up, wages go up. And history proves this. Look at the tax increases of the 19-teens for fighting World War I. We were at a 91% tax level in 1920 when Warren Harding came in on the campaign promise of dropping the top tax rate to 25%. He did so. What happened? Poverty actually increased among working people in the Roaring '20s. Wages went down. We'll be right back.